Our speaker for today, Nicole Haar, has worked for the PKD Foundation for 10 years and currently serves as the Director of Community Engagement. Throughout her career with the organization, she has had the privilege to support patient community by providing education and support programs and by working with the PKD Foundation's amazing set of volunteers. Nicole has a passion for education, and she began her professional career as an elementary education teacher before joining the foundation staff in 2010. Nicole was born and raised in Tennessee, but the Midwest has been her home to her family for the last 25 years. Her connection to PKD began in 2001 when she herself was diagnosed with PKD. She has 2 children, 1 grandchild, all of whom also have PKD. Nicole received a life-saving kidney transplant from a living donor in 2018, and she says that she lives each day in gratitude for that amazing gift. So, Nicole, we're so pleased to have you today, and let's give a virtual warm round of applause and a Space Center Rotary welcome to Nicole Haar. Thank you, Nicole.
Sure, and thank you for having me. I've just shared my screen again, so I hope you can see the slide that is up there. First of all, I just want to thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to get to talk about PKD a little bit, and I want to thank Raymond and Steve. I've been communicating with both of you to get this organized, so we really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit of information about PKD. You know, PKD is the 4th leading cause of kidney failure in the United States, but actually not a lot of people know about PKD. So we'll talk a little bit about what PKD is and how it impacts families and generation after generation. And we'll also talk about some hope, because we're going to talk about what's being done to develop treatments for PKD, and we hope one day we'll have a cure. So polycystic kidney disease, or PKD, affects individuals regardless of age, gender, or racial or ethnic origin. It does cause multiple fluid-filled cysts to grow on the kidneys, and this can result in your kidneys getting larger, and it can lead to kidney failure, although it doesn't always lead to kidney failure. This is a normal kidney, and I'm going to show you what a PKD kidney looks like. If you make a fist, you just look at your fist, that's about the size of your kidney. That's an average size kidney, and it should weigh, your kidney probably weighs about as much as a deck of cards. But some polycystic kidneys can get much larger. They can get to be as large as footballs, and they can be much heavier than a deck of cards. Kidneys can become larger, and they can crowd out other organs, and sometimes this is very uncomfortable. So polycystic kidney disease, or ADPKD, is one of the most common life-threatening genetic diseases. If a parent has PKD, they have a 50% chance of passing the disease on to each one of their children. And there really isn't any way to determine the impact that it's going to have. So you could have a family that has, say, 4 children and none of the children have PKD, or you could have a family with 3 children and all 3 children inherited the mutated gene and have PKD. Because it is passed from generation to generation, it can affect many people in one family. But there is something called a spontaneous mutation, and that means that there isn't a family history, no one else in the family has ever had PKD, and the gene was mutated in a new person in the family. And once this happens, the genetic implications are the same. So if you are a spontaneous mutation, even though your parents don't have it, your grandparents didn't have it, you would then have a 50% chance of passing along as well. So in addition to some of the uncomfortable, back pain and things like that that are associated with kidneys that are getting larger, the cysts can rupture, and that causes additional pain. Sometimes patients have urinary tract infections, kidney stones, blood in the urine. These are just some things that are other additional complications. And patients can suffer from some extrarenal conditions. So outside of the kidneys, PKD can also cause some other issues. Might be cerebral aneurysms or hernias or cardiac disease. And also depression and anxiety comes along with chronic diseases as well. There is a recessive form of polycystic kidney disease, autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease, or ARPKD. And this affects about 1 in 25,000 babies. This is different in that the parents don't know that they have it. They each have a recessive gene and both have to pass it on. A lot of times children with ARPKD are diagnosed in utero. Many children that have ARPKD will need to have dialysis or a transplant during their lifetime. And the management of ARPKD has really improved over the years. And so what we're finding is that children that are born with ARPKD have a much longer lifespan, and dialysis and transplantation are actually put off until they're later in life. So that's always good news. Back to ADPKD for a minute. This is, again, the dominant form of the disease. As we said earlier, it is the 4th leading cause of kidney failure. Most of the time, patients will experience kidney failure if they're going to in their 50s or later in their life. But there's some really good news. In 2018, the FDA did approve the first treatment for ADPKD. Once kidneys fail, the only options for a patient would be dialysis or transplantation. And so while both of these things are life-saving and we're grateful that they're available, they do also both have issues that you have to deal with. Because PKD is a genetic disease, sometimes it can be difficult to get a kidney from a family member because they may have PKD as well. So we'll talk a little bit about treatment of kidney failure. As I said before, once kidneys fail, dialysis and transplantation are options. Dialysis is an artificial system for cleaning the blood, doing some of these things that your healthy kidneys do. Dialysis usually takes about 4 hours a day, 3 times a week. So it's kind of disruptive, to your schedule. And it can also be very costly. Dialysis is quite expensive. The other option is a kidney transplant. And so this is a great option because you don't have to take care, beyond dialysis. You do have to take medication for the rest of your life, but it does give you the highest quality of life. There's about 100,000 people on the waiting list for a kidney, and there are about 17,000 transplants that are done each year. So this is a list of potential treatments for PKD. Since 1982, the PKD Foundation has led the fight against PKD through the support of research. And we have gone from having one single drug in clinical trials about 5 years ago to more drugs in the pipeline today than ever before. In addition to these potential treatments that are listed here on this slide, researchers are also looking into dietary interventions, and they're also looking at tolvaptan in children. And tolvaptan is the drug that was approved, I mentioned on a slide before, a few years ago for adults that have ADPKD, but it hasn't been approved yet in children. So that would be an awesome thing to have that available for children as well. So the PKD Foundation's mission is we give hope. We fund research, advocate for patients, and build a community for all impacted by PKD. As research is underway to learn more about PKD and to develop drug treatments, the foundation focuses on helping families through education and support programs that begin at diagnosis and continue through dialysis, transplantation, and even post-transplant as well. We also work to raise awareness, and we conduct grassroots advocacy work that help, among other things, to increase research funding for kidney disease and PKD by the government agency, the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. Research that will help us better understand PKD and develop life-saving treatments is the Foundation's top priority. The Foundation is the largest private funder of PKD research in the United States. And since the Foundation was founded in 1982, there's been more than $50 million invested in research, clinical, and scientific grants, as well as fellowships and other scientific meetings. So we've talked about the Foundation's commitment to research. The PKD Foundation also is deeply committed to education and support for patients and families. In 2018, we launched PKD Connect, which is the go-to source for patients when they're diagnosed. Education resources and services are available from the time that someone hears the words, "you have PKD," to when kidneys fail and they may be preparing for dialysis or a transplant. The Foundation also offers programs and services to help PKD patients live post-transplant. Resources for patients include webinars, webcasts, blogs, videos, and patient handbooks for both AD-PKD and AR-PKD. In addition, the PKD Foundation addresses the emotional impact that PKD has on families living with lifelong chronic disease through our peer mentoring program. PKDcure.org is the place to go if you're looking for information about PKD. The PKD Foundation's chapter network allows the Foundation to have a local presence across the country. We have about 55 chapters, and they are located in 34 states, plus the District of Columbia. Our chapters are led entirely by unpaid volunteers who are committed to the PKD Foundation's mission. In addition to our local chapters, we also have a virtual PKD Parents chapter, and this PKD Parents chapter provides support to parents of children that have AD-PKD and AR-PKD. The local chapter, we do have a Houston chapter, and our coordinator there her name is Christiane Disser. And if you're interested in connecting with her, you can reach her by email at houstonchapter@pkdcure.org. So these are some ways that you can get involved in the PKD Foundation. You can certainly sign up to receive emails. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out, talks about all the activities that are going on at the PKD Foundation. You can also subscribe to our blog, PKD Connection. The blog has a lot of stories from patients. We talk about research and various educational activities and support activities on our blog. You can certainly go to our website and make a gift to support the critical work that the PKD Foundation does. And we also have social media, so it's very easy to connect with us on social media as well. So the Walk for PKD and fundraising is one way also that you can get involved with the PKD Foundation. And I did ask a colleague of mine, Sue Full, to join us as well. She's our Senior Director of Community Fundraising. And I'd like for her to jump in a little bit and talk more about some of our fundraising activities that are going on right now.
Thanks, Nicole. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. This has been really informative and nice way to spend a Monday. The Walk for PKD has, since 2000, been a branded national event. Right now we have 54 walks across the country, and on a typical year, we bring out about 10,000 PKD patients, advocates, researchers, doctors that join together across the country to fundraise for PKD, to offer support to each other, and to gather. And really, it feels like a family reunion, I would say. I have had the privilege of getting to attend walks across the country, and actually I know Nicole's attended quite a few walks too, and it is a really powerful feeling to get to see these families support each other, because for some of them, it's the only time of the year that they talk to somebody else who deals with the same thing they're dealing with, and that gets to have that experience of just having somebody understand what the shoes they're walking in every day. So as you know, this year's really given us all a lot of changes and things to change in our life. Nicole, if you could pop forward to the next slide for just a minute. This year we kind of had to re-envision our Walk for PKD, and we decided to go virtual. We felt like it was the safest way for all of our community to be able to participate, but still fundraise and do something powerful and impactful for the mission of the organization. The fundraising for the walk goes directly to fund research. And as Nicole said, there's a lot of exciting things in the pipeline out there. And so we want to keep that momentum going. So for our 10 days, one goal event, we are still having all of our local walks fundraising locally. A lot of people know each other that come out to the walk, as I said before. We have sponsors at the local level, and they really get excited about that local fundraising, but it always builds towards one goal. And this year we are going to be fundraising from August. From August. We started in August. We kicked off our event on PKD Awareness Day on September 4th. And then our 10-day one goal event is going to run in October, from October 9th through the 18th. And ways that you can get involved. Nicole, if you want to hop back to the last slide again, that would be great, is to go to walkforpkd.org. You can find your local Houston walk and join there. Bob Mensinger is the walk coordinator in Houston. If you want to contact him, his information is on the Houston walk page. And I know Raymond and his family have been involved in the walk in the past, and it's really an important event for the PKD Foundation every year and a really great experience for our patient community. So we will be having a lot of engagement online this year, and there is a Facebook page. If you go to the PKD Foundation's Facebook page, you can join the event and you'll get more information about how you can be involved virtually during those 10 days. There is another way to fundraise for PKD that can be done in your own way, taking your own passions or hobbies, and that can be found at pkdcure.org, Fundraise Your Way. And that is where we've had things across the board, polar plunge in February, where people jump into really, really cold water and they raise money. Some people join a marathon and run a marathon and raise money through this platform. Some people honor a loved one, maybe getting a transplant, and fundraise that way. There's just a lot of different ways you can get involved and really take what's meaningful to you and do something for a good cause.
Thank you, Sue, for jumping in. So that's really all we had today, but I'll leave with the PKD Foundation really is looking forward to a day when no one suffers the full effects of this disease, when we have multiple treatment options and a cure for PKD. I want to thank you again for inviting us and letting us share a little bit more about PKD with you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Nicole, while we were listening to you talk, I was just curious. Has there been any research to develop an artificial kidney at all?
Oh, that's such a good question. There actually has. There is an implantable artificial kidney that is in the works right now. It was, the last I heard, it was supposed to be in clinical trials sometime this year. Some clinical trials have been affected by the pandemic and have slowed down just a little bit. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I haven't heard that it's in clinical trials, but it would be in clinical trials for patients that are currently on dialysis first. So that's really exciting as well, because you know, we talked about on one of the slides about how many patients are on the transplant waiting list and how many transplants are done each year. Some transplants are done with living donation, some are deceased donors. And so to have an implantable kidney that would function in a way, you know, a similar way that a kidney would obviously mean that more people would be transplanted, although a different way, and we could have some of those people come off the list.
It's such a complicated and sophisticated organ. If they pull that off, that'll be amazing.
Yes, yes, and it's about the size of a deck of cards, actually. It's a little box. It's quite interesting. If you Google the Kidney Project, you can find out more information about that.
I have a question on the genetic side. Has science identified the exact gene location and any associated health impacts associated with that gene?
Yeah, so there's two genes that cause the dominant form. of PKD. One of them is a little more progressive than the other. So it's PKD1 and PKD2. PKD1 accounts for about 80% of people that have AD-PKD. And if you have PKD1, you generally would have issues with the disease a little bit earlier. But it also varies quite a bit even within families. But yes, the genes have been identified.
On your slide on the method of dialysis, I noticed there wasn't any mention about the other method of dialysis through the abdominal, the stomach, which
Right.
I think where the initial cost of the equipment may be large, but the subsequent yearly maintenance would be a lot less than, say, 84,000 a year.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's two different types of dialysis, hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. In hemodialysis, it's usually there's access in your arm, and peritoneal is through your abdominal, your access is through your abdomen. And so in both cases, the patient has to have a procedure and that has to mature before they can actually start dialysis. So the cost, may vary between, that was kind of an average. So there could be differences, yes, in the cost.
The big advantage, though, is you're doing it at home. You're not going to spend 4 hours a day somewhere else and everything. So you do it at home and it's done during the night.
It can be, yes. And some people can actually do hemodialysis at home too. You have to, of course, be trained to do it. So there's a couple of options, and it's good that patients can be made aware of the options and be part of the decision as to what works best.
Hi, my name is Daryl. My question is, now I understand that it can happen spontaneously, and it is also hereditary. So if, let's say, it can be passed down from, let's say, a grandparent or great grandparent, if let's say if the parents don't have it?
Well, for the dominant form of PKD, it doesn't skip a generation. So I have talked to quite a few people that didn't know that they had a family history. And then, once they're diagnosed, they kind of figure out that someone in their family tree did have some kidney disease. And then, you wonder if that was PKD. But typically, if you'll know if your parent has it, and then the chance would be 50% for each one of your children. But yeah, you're right. 10 to 15, about 10% of the people that have AD-PKD are spontaneous mutations, and there's no previous family history of the disease.
So Nicole, this is Trey. I've just got a morbid curiosity about the transplantation. When you transplant one good kidney into a human, do they remove both bad kidneys or just one of the bad kidneys?
That is a very good question. So actually that varies from patient to patient. PKD kidneys, as we saw on that slide, can be very large. Not everyone's kidneys get to be the size of footballs, but they can be. And so typically when you have a kidney transplant, they don't remove the native kidneys, and the kidney that they put in is not actually put in where your kidney is. It's down lower. But in PKD patients, because the kidneys are large and they have all those cysts on them and they're uncomfortable, sometimes there's not room for a transplant. So one or both of the kidneys have to be removed. Sometimes they're removed just because they're painful and uncomfortable and things like that. But it really varies among PKD patients. In the introduction, it was said that I had a kidney transplant, and I actually had a living donor kidney transplant. And Sue, who spoke a moment ago about the walk, was actually my donor. We've been friends for longer than we've been colleagues. And in my case, my kidneys were very large, but there was room for the transplant. They went ahead and did the transplant so I could have a preemptive transplant, and then later went in and removed my kidneys. And that's really the decision of your surgeon, and particular part of your medical history all that has to come into play, and that's how the decision is made.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.